Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Agency Operators Podcast. Today, I'm joined by William Harris of Elumynt. How you doing, William?
I'm doing great, Pasha. Thanks for having me on the show.
Man, I'm really excited to chat. I know you guys are very experienced in your field when it comes to sending traffic, specifically focusing on Shopify stores. That's really niche, but at the same time, it's pretty not niche because so many
Right.
Shopify stores exist. So there's some nuance there that I'm definitely curious about. Before we hop into that, I'd love to hear your story on how you became the CEO of Elumynt. What made you get started? You've been in the industry for, I think you said, roughly 10 years now. Unofficially, officially, I'm not sure. But yeah, would love to hear a little bit more about how you got to where you are.
Yeah. So if we go way back, I don't know if you remember, there were a couple of websites, Growth Hackers.
Mhm.
Sean Ellis wrote that. There was growthhackers.com. There was inbound.org. And at the time, I was running growth marketing for a SaaS company, VC-backed SaaS company called When I Work. I was writing about a lot of the stuff that we were doing there. And I believe that there was at least a week or a month or something where I was number one on both Growth Hackers and Inbound. And so it was like that was my jam. That was what I really enjoyed doing. And so I was writing about this then on Entrepreneur, on Fast Company, and it turned into one of those things where somebody said, "Hey, I like what you're doing. Can you help me grow my business?" And I just like helping people, and I knew other people that I could bring in, and I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. Like, let's figure out a way to help you do this." Um, Never really thought about the agency model, about whether it needed to be disrupted or fixed or anything. But it was one of those things where after I started getting going with this, I realized that a lot of people were talking about how their agency didn't understand their business. And I'm a very curious person. And so I'm like, well, what does that mean that they don't understand your business? Is it that they don't understand your vertical? Well, yeah, kind of. Or is it that they didn't understand business? And that's kind of what I locked into is that a lot of agencies, a lot of people, contractors, etc., even the marketing teams within those companies don't understand the business. They don't understand the P&L. They don't understand whether what they're doing is profitable or not. And so that was like there's an opportunity here. People are patting themselves on their back. They're saying, hey, we did a good job. We raised the ROAS to this. And then the CFO is saying, but my business is less profitable. Like you didn't actually improve the business. And so that was one of those things that said, okay, let's start making this into something more than just me and some contractors, into an actual agency that's going to really dig into how do we make sure that we're growing companies profitably.
Amazing. And that's an interesting distinction that you make there when it's like, what's the difference between a guy who knows a couple contractors on the internet and an actual agency or company or a real service provider team? And I think that there's a definitely a distinction to be made over there. I mean, what's your perspective?
I got to give credit to my business partner, Jeff Snyder, on that one. It wasn't until I brought him on in 2020 that we had any W-2s. And so it was still just me and contractors running the thing. I was the growth strategist. And bringing him on was kind of that catalyst that we needed of like, okay, how do we start actually training people in-house to do things the way that we want them done? Um, there are pros and cons to every model. And I would say that you have to find the model that works for you. If it was just me, I'd probably stick to the contractor model because that fit with my brain and I understood it. Now that we've positioned and moved into having employees, I get the value of it so much more. Like I said, I have to give credit to Jeff for the one to make that happen. But now I think the things that I like about it are the people on our team are basically like they're drinking our Kool-Aid, right? They eat, sleep, think, breathe the way that we want them to be trained. And I think that it gives you a really good, consistent experience across everything, which is really nice. If you're going to try to build a brand, McDonald's, whatever it is, right? Like that consistency where you say every McDonald's you go to, every Starbucks you go to, it tastes the same. And I think that if you're going to build a brand, even in the service-based industry, having a very good, consistent experience is one of the things that people are looking for. So that way, no matter where they are, they're like, yep, I'm going to get this good experience with people trained in the similar way, with the right, same mindset, etc. So there's pros and cons. Really like this model a lot better though now.
And so with the W-2s, I mean, you definitely have that pressure of, okay, well, this is not like an hourly person or this person has like other position. It's like, no, like we've agreed to be this person's employer, regardless if you have a client drop or whatever. So you need to have that steady growth or that steady pricing model on the other side from your clients to ensure that you're able to continue to pay 1, 2, 3, 4, and then however many people are on the team. Has that been a challenge for you guys?
It's a good question. I think about it like basketball. That's the sport that I liked playing the most growing up. So if people played basketball, they can relate. Just translate this to whatever sport you are. But I can remember there was a time, I want to say that we were in, I think it was 7th grade. And we played I think it was like the 9th grade team or something. It was either 8th grade or 9th grade, but I thought it was more than one jump up that we played them in like a scrimmage. And we played really well. I think we still lost, but we played the best game of our lives. And part of it was because of that. You have to succeed. You got to figure this out. Like you're up against something really hard. Whereas like you could play easy teams and almost lose to these easy teams. Sometimes for that same mentality where you're like, I don't have to try as much, right? Especially coming in a 7th grade mind mentality. So I'd say similarly though, in business, there is something to be said for, hey, if we don't have enough customers coming in, if our customers churn because we did crap work or whatever that might be, this really sucks, right? For the business, for the people that we've committed to, not just those people, but for their families. Like this is a big deal. And so I'd say that there is a healthy amount of pressure that says, figure it out. And I think that that's necessary. I will say, unfortunately, we have had to lay a couple people off. I think most businesses have at some point in time. If you haven't, good for you. You will likely. It sucks. It is one of the worst feelings that you will ever go through as a founder, as a business owner. But we worked hard to make sure that those people were in, good positions. We tried to make sure that it's like, how do we help you find a job? But there are times where, you can lose a big client. And I think that's one of the things that we learned early on is that you got 1 or 2 clients that make up, 25% of your revenue. They could be happy clients. And I think in this case, they've moved it in-house. Still happy with us, but they're going to hire in-house and you're out a significant amount of revenue very quickly.
Yeah, it's just business, right? There's
Yeah.
some things that are like not personal. They have nothing to do with your performance. I agree with you entirely that when you're up against it, you have no choice but to survive, to succeed by, I don't want to say by all means necessary, but you have to be nimble. And that might mean just like working longer or thinking outside the box or seeking help from other people in your industry who might be doing something a little bit different. Like you kind of, you get that curiosity or that creativity drive. But then there's cases where they move it in-house because that's the business decision from up above, like the CEO of the company that might not even be the person that you're dealing or working with.
Well, we've had this even with CEOs who are like, I think that my marketing person is making the wrong decision. I love working with you, but I don't hire smart people to ignore their advice. This is literally what somebody said. I hire smart people to listen to them. And so this is what our new CMO wants to do. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because that's why I hired him. So, there are things that like you said, it's not a personal thing. They move it in-house. It's a great thing. You celebrate that. You got them to a point where they felt that they had the budget to actually hire in-house. Cool. Happy.
Yeah. And, sometimes I will say like in-house might not be the best because it depends who they're like, that might be financially better, but like from a strategic or maybe from an experience point of view, who knows, right? There's different ways to train people.
Pros and cons, 100%.
Always. There's always that trade-off and there's always that risk factor.
Yeah. It's something that I've obviously thought a lot about because I run an agency. And so there is a bias towards my thought about what is the better way to run this. There are times where in-house can make sense. There's a lot of times where it doesn't. The way that it makes sense to people in their minds, they look at it and they say, the agency costs me $20,000 a month. I can hire a couple people for $15,000 a month and I'm saving $5,000 a month. The problem is if those people, and they'll likely do good for 3 months or whatever that is. But as soon as they run into an issue that's outside of their understanding, they have no other accounts that they're training things on, whereas we're training on a lot of other accounts. And so we're seeing what's working here and here and here and here and here. If those people get stuck and you don't have the support to help them get unstuck from where they are, then those next 3 months can be very brutal to your business. And you're not saving 5,000, but you're losing 20,000.
Absolutely. And that's where I think that the agency model in general, just as like a framework for businesses in today's world, is ideal. Why?
Okay.
Because there's no longer going to be this, like, this is my perspective, of course, and I could be like, I'm talking over the next 20, 30, 50 years, big companies will cease to exist for the most part. Many of them will cease to exist. And we even see this in the stock market. If you look at what are the profitable companies that are public, and probably 60 to 70% of them are known as zombie companies. They don't make any money. So why is that? Like they're just, inflated. There's so much of this kind of inflated thing going on.
Sure.
And the only thing that's not inflated are small, nimble teams who are specialized. And those small, nimble teams have contacts that they can refer to if they need assistance with things that are outside of their own wheelhouse. And the reason they have those contacts is because it's the nature of their business works that way. If you are an individual person, you might have a couple newsletters you follow, maybe a WhatsApp group, but that's it, right? There's limitations to what you can do. And so like you said, if you run into a problem, you're working for a company, you're going to go on Reddit, you're going to go on ChatGPT to try to solve the problem, but you don't have that network available to you like we do, right?
Sure.
I've been in the Amazon space, and I know every Amazon service provider that does every single thing. And it's like, if I can't figure it out, I will definitely find a person that can figure it out.
Yeah.
And so that's, and on the other side as well, like we have specialists that are all over the world. We don't have a centralized office space, which for some agencies that actually might be a good thing or a bad thing. I think there's definitely, like you said, pros and cons. There's benefit to having a centralized office space, but because we're global, we have access to talent all over the world, and we're able to price in a way that's very competitive. So you get a perfect combination of value and experience, expertise, in all the different fields and everything. So, I mean, you're biased, I'm biased, but I think our model is ideal.
Yeah, let's pat ourselves on our back for doing a good job.
Yeah,
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Actually, I got on a call today, and one of the guys wasn't one of the clients. There's two people in the company that we speak to, and I was like, "Oh, where's this guy?" He's at a talk right now, giving a speech about how to be nimble and successful in business, and that was the guy that actually hired us. So I was like, "Oh, that's very nice." So he's probably advising people to follow his model, and his model was, "Okay, we have this company. Let's hire an agency for Amazon. Let's hire an agency for social. Let's hire an agency." So that's, they were being very nimble by doing that. And so they have like an small in-house management team that works with all these different specialized partners. And they were able to build this really successful company.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool that he's out there telling people about it.
Here's the way I look at it. I've had a couple people on my podcast, the Up Arrow podcast, talking about similar things. One was Curtis Matsko, Portland Leather Goods, doing over 150. I think they're approaching $200 million a year. Will Nitza, I don't remember if he was talking about the official numbers, but we'll say it's over $100 million a year as well. Two different companies, two different mindsets in the way that they're approaching this. And Curtis is like, we're insourcing everything. Like, we're insourcing our manufacturing. We want as big a moat as we possibly can. And he's working very successfully at that. Will Nitza, over 100 million, team of 8, right? So it's the complete opposite of outsourcing things. And I think a lot of it comes down to your personality as a founder. What can you wrap your head around? What are you more inclined to be good at and do? The same way that it's like, if you're 5 foot, basketball's probably not your sport. Muggsy Bogues proved that there are still outliers to that, but it's probably not your sport. You might have a different sport. You're 7 foot. There's a good chance that might be your sport. Like, what is your inclination? What are your abilities? What is your God-given talents? Things like that. Lean into those. Insourcing, outsourcing, not a right or a wrong, just which one makes more sense to you.
I love that. And I think for some of us, maybe software. That's kind of what I'm leaning into right now. Is like, software is a lot of fun. It gives you leverage. Having in-house software as an agency is probably extremely helpful for many different reasons. Even though there's a lot of stuff out there that exists, and that's fine too, third-party applications, and you can make partnerships and stuff. But like if you are able to build something that is going to work really well for your specific process that you've developed over years, and then you're able to package that and actually sell it to others, I mean, that's a win-win on many different levels, and that gives you scale. So one thing in my experience is like, all right, we have X amount of clients. Like, what happens if like we double that tomorrow? Like, are we ready for that? What would that look like? Does everybody go crazy? Maybe, and it's like those scaling challenges are very real. Luckily, they come at us with pace. Luckily or unluckily for some of us.
Sure.
But I agree with you 100%. You have to understand, this is just entrepreneurship in general. Like, you have to really be so dialed into who you are and be very real with yourself that like, man, I suck at this. Like myself, I suck at taking notes. I got my Fathom note taker. Like, I can put a pen and pencil on my desk. Like, if I'm busy taking notes, I can't pay attention. But there's some people who they can't be at a meeting without taking notes on a pen and paper. And I don't know how they do it. but that makes, that works for them.
So I was in college, and I can remember going to see the guidance counselor and saying, "Why I'm struggling. I think I had a B in a class," and I typically got A's, and so I remember being a little bit frustrated and saying, maybe it was even a C. I don't remember, right? But it was not the grade that I was used to getting. And I said, "I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like, I'm doing everything right. I'm even taking notes now." And she goes, "What kind of learner are you?" I don't know. What do you mean? She's like, "Well, there's either auditory, visual, or tactile, right? Like those are the three main learning styles." We do the test. I'm a musician. I play like all the different music instruments. You're an auditory learner. Quit taking notes. And so to your point, I was taking notes because I thought that's what I needed to do. That's what they told me you got to do when you're in college. You can't just skate by without taking notes. Okay, got it. I'm going to do that. I just wasn't paying attention now because I was too focused on the notes.
Interesting. I'm also a musician, so maybe there's something to it.
Yeah,
so, like
for
people,
sure.
we're auditory learners, and so like the other stuff just doesn't. So that's a perfect example. It's like there's a process that you have to go through, and that's the journey of entrepreneurship to me.
Right.
It's really a journey of learning yourself and learning how to work with others. And there's so many parts of this that translate into other aspects of life, like family life, or just your own relationship to the greater community that has nothing to do with work.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like doesn't get spoken about enough, because we're really just focused on, all right, I do Shopify, I do social media, we're talking about maybe more technical things with people. And then to people who are coming from the outside that have nothing to do. And I'm surprised how little people around me actually know about digital marketing. And
Sure.
they're interacting with it, but they don't know anything from our side, And so it's like, how is my work affecting people who don't even know what I do? And there is a correlation there.
You brought up family. So let's run with that for a second, because I like this concept. We implemented EOS Traction, if you're familiar with that book, into our business. And it's a framework, entrepreneur operating system. It's a framework for how do you talk about the business, run the business, mission, vision, values, all of these things that go into this. And one of the things that they talk about is it's like you have to write down, like, what are the different seats that exist in the business, the different roles, and who sits in that seat. And it's important to say, first of all, the person that's sitting in that seat, a person can sit in more than one seat, but more than one person cannot sit in the same seat. So if you and I are both responsible for the same thing, it's very easy for it to get missed or not. I thought you were going to do it. I thought you were going to do it. But if somebody's responsible, I can delegate that to you and say, hey, I'm responsible for it. I need you to get this done. That's fine. I'm still responsible for whether or not it gets done, right? But the other thing that's interesting about this is by identifying those roles, you can say, and we even vote on this as a leadership team, is William, does he GWC, gets it, wants it, and has the capacity? Does he get the job? Does he want this role? And does he have the capacity to do it? And so let's say that it might be, doing the podcast. It's like, maybe I get it. Maybe I have the capacity to do it, but I don't want it. Well, that's going to not be very good, right? And so you have to figure out these things. The same is true, though, in your family as well. There may be things that you are very good at that you just don't want to do. And somebody else may not be the best at doing it, but they're like, I don't know, I enjoy doing this. And an example that comes to mind is cooking. Up until 2 years ago, I don't think I had cooked more than maybe macaroni and cheese. But my wife she was coaching a volleyball team. And so I had to make dinners, and I had to figure out how I was going to make dinners. I couldn't make them the way that she made them. I had to make them my way. And I really started to enjoy it. And it became something that's like, this is a creative outlet for me. I liked it. And so for the most part, most of the time, I try to make the dinners now. And I think that's just one of those things where it's like, well, who sits in that seat? But if we're both like, hey, you might sit in it, I might sit in it, I don't know. Wait, nobody made dinner. Nobody actually got the groceries for this. Nobody figured out what we're going to eat tonight. Okay, I guess we're going out to eat, right? You can't have two people in the same seat.
I love that. Yeah, I think that framework can apply to so many different things, right? But it really comes down to that clarity and that communication of what's going on, essentially. So like in my agency and in my family life, so much of that has just been unspoken, which is fine too. Like you kind of run on intuition where it's like, well, I see it's not getting done, and I'm kind of naturally inclined to pay attention to these things. So but having that clearly spoken in that type of way just gives people a sense of security. I think especially with like larger organizations. Yeah, I think once you get to a certain point, those things must absolutely be done. And I love what you said about like, that two people can't do exactly the same role, you know, even though like that's not kind of like an interchangeable thing.
Mhm.
So I'd love to speak a little bit more now kind of on the technical side,
Yeah.
because you guys are focused on Shopify and you don't really touch the Shopify, you're touching the traffic that goes to the Shopify.
Mhm.
So without going too deep into the weeds, you know, considering that it's 2025, we're approaching actually the end of it. So much of the technology around all of this is constantly changing. TikTok is in an interesting place right now, and the way that people consume on
For
TikTok
sure.
is revolutionizing the internet in many different ways. So I'm curious, you know, kind of from your perspective and what you see across all your clients, like what would you say are like the primary drivers right now to getting that attention and bringing that brand awareness to your company?
Mm. Getting attention is such an interesting thing. Obviously, what we do is the digital advertising, and so I could talk about that, but there's so many things that take place outside of the digital advertising too. Let's start with the digital advertising first. Meta still ends up being probably the best at driving net new business growth, net new growth of consumers. YouTube is probably our second best most of the time, and then I'd say TikTok, depending on the brand, might be third. But when you look at the different channels, a lot of it comes down to, well, who are your customers? Who are you talking to? Where are they hanging out? If you've got a lot of Gen Alpha customers, this is anecdotal, but I've seen some evidence suggesting this as well. Anecdotal meaning I have Gen Alpha daughters who have Gen Alpha friends, and when I talk to them, they think TikTok is for old people. They're back to Snapchat, and so that's true for them. I saw somebody talking about coastally though that they think Snapchat is weird, and they're like, I don't have Snapchat. We use Facebook Messenger, and you're like, wait a minute. How are we coming back to Facebook Messenger? So I think a lot of this comes down to understanding that there are pockets of your customers all over a lot of these different platforms. Find where they're hanging out organically, and then find ways to reach them. On the ad side, again, going back to Meta and YouTube and TikTok probably being like number 3, those just seem to be the ones that will return the most consistent results for almost any demographic over a consistent period of time. And the reason why I lean towards Meta, sometimes maybe your demographic is more on TikTok, but what we find is that when people come to TikTok, they are more interested in doing this, right? And just continuing to scroll through. Facebook has a tendency for people to be more willing to click away from it, at least at this point in time. And so it tends to drive better business performance if you're actually trying to sell something more often than not. TikTok's making some progress with that. YouTube, again, making a lot of progress with that. But I'd say between Meta and YouTube, those are usually going to be the top 2 for most brands. Outside of digital ads, though, I was actually just talking to somebody who I'm going to have him on the podcast, talked about it today, Al Doan. It's Missouri Star Quilt. And in the podcast is about how you need to buy a town. And so he literally bought a town and created it in like the Disney of quilting or something like that, right? But it ends up being another way to get attention from the people who are quilters. And it's like this holy site for them to come to about like quilting and to be there and to get excited. And so how do you get attention? I think you have to figure out, for instance, their ideal customer, maybe 45, 55, they're not hyper social media consumers. They're on social media. They might respond to something there, but they're spending a lot more time offline. How's something that they can do to drive people into these offline events and experiences, things like that?
They're into quilting. They're not spending
Mm-hmm.
time on their phones. So
Right.
you bring them to a place where everybody's all about quilting, and that's how you get their attention. Yeah,
Right.
I think these conferences will always kind of stick around, even though in some I hear mixed feedback about going to in-person events. But like I'm going to an event here in Seattle in 2 months for the Amazon Accelerate conference, and I went
Nice.
last year, and I was on the fence. Should I go? Should I not? But there's just something so special about getting out there and knowing who you know and knowing what you know, and just kind of like basking in that for a little bit with people who you've kind of seen on the internet, or like people who share that common interest, because there's no other place where you can go and have that level of exposure or that kind of intense of a confirmation of
Yep.
your own knowledge.
Look at what Gary Vee did with V Friends. He put together the first show was in Minneapolis. I got to go, which was really fun, right? But it's like these are NFTs, digital currency. Anonymity is literally the whole point of a lot of this stuff. And he managed to say, hey, let's take all that digital anonymity and let's bring it together in person and meet up with these other people. Same thing, Elon Musk just did this with what is it, like the Tesla diner, right? Where you could actually just drive in and it's a diner, it's an experience. We are craving these actual real in-person moments. I think that's something that is a part of our biology. And as much as we try to fight it, I think that we will learn that it's better to use our biology in positive ways to our advantage versus trying to fight against it.
100%. And I think that this is the whole argument with AI, that people are like, oh my God, with AI, there's so much danger and everything. I mean, this is a highly controversial topic because everybody's exposed to AI. But I think that in many ways, AI will force us to be hyper aware of authenticity. Like right now, whenever I see any type of imagery, video, copy that doesn't have, even with a face talking, I can automatically pick it up. Like, is that real or not? And like we're becoming like really just like tuned in. Maybe it's just me because I'm a marketer, but like micro expressions and like you just have to pay so close attention now. And so the only way that we know for sure that this is a real person talking to us is when we're standing in front of that real person. Otherwise, on the internet, all that anonymity and there's just so much noise out there. We are craving authenticity. And that's another reason where my thesis comes back to the agency model, that no matter how much automation you put out there, how much software, people want a person responsible. Somebody has to be responsible. You can't just like, oh, here's the machine is going to do all the things and bye. No, like you want somebody who is like has a sentient human being to be like responsible and because there's always these like one-offs that could
you
occur.
Want somebody to point the finger at if it's broken and say, fix it now. Right.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do that to a bot. The bot will be like, I'm a bot.
Yeah. Although a buddy of mine, Christian Lamone, who was on the podcast, I really appreciate the way he went about it. He said something along the lines of, if ChatGPT messes up, he's like, no, you're wrong, blah, 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 blah. You've wasted my time kind of thing. And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. He's like, no, I want you to internalize this. You wasted my time. Right? It's like, you can say that, but it's like, it's not the same as having that true accountability.
Yeah. And at a core level, I think that having that accountability or showing, like, why do people get so much satisfaction when they hear words like, I was wrong, or I'm sorry? It has embedded in it some type of continuity that maybe next time will be better. It gives you hope for the future, like on a very micro level. But with a robot, you don't know that that's true. It could just be like, there's nothing to be won from that loss. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of what speaks to it.
I'm on your side. I agree.
Yeah. William, it was a pleasure speaking with you, man. I think there were some great nuggets of gold, and I hope some of our listeners have received something valuable. I definitely did. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise, Pasha. Thank you very much for having me on.
And if people wanted to find you guys and work with Elumynt, what's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, the website spelled a little interestingly. This was back when it was cool to misspell words. So it is spelled ELUM as in Michael, YN as in Nancy, T.com, Elumynt, but it's phonetically like the periodic table of elements. So that's the best place to reach out if you want to work with us. If you want to follow me, I'm pretty active on both LinkedIn and on X. It's just WM Harris 101.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for listening. Catch you on the next one.